Greetings, all. This is Bob Davis. I'm the co-owner of SoulPatrol.com, along with my brother Mike, who's producing the show tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on board. We have a very special guest who's with us here in the studio tonight, and I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But before I do, one of the things I want to do is I want to play a commercial for you. We have a sponsor tonight, and so what we want to do is play the sponsor's message. So, Mr. Producer, could you cue that up for us? Okay, I'm back. So hopefully you all got a chance to take a look at that message. And I believe that there are also some links in your on the website that you're viewing this on that you can go to the sponsor site as well. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to present our special guest tonight. This special guest is somebody I've known for about 20 years. And I think I'm going to tell the story of how I first met her, because I think that that's very interesting. But then we're going to get into some pretty deep conversation, because those of you who know or have heard of or have heard Miss Bettye LaVette know that Bettye LaVette don't play. And so we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff here. Some of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be not so good. But there's one thing that you can be well assured of, is that if you're having a conversation with Bettye LaVette, she's going to give it to you straight, whether you like it or you don't like it. And again, I want to keep this a little. So first, I was going to do a hardcore interview, but I can't really do
You
that
sound like you're trying to start a fight.
No. See, the thing about Bettye LaVette is I really like Bettye LaVette a lot. But if you ever saw the two of us together, you might not think so, because she is the type of person that she's going to give you a good cussing out if she thinks that you need it. Doesn't mean that she doesn't like you, but she's always going to tell you the truth. And the truth might be something different right now than what it is 5 minutes from now, but she's going to give you her version of the truth. And I appreciate that, because there's really, in our society today, there's way too much BS. And there's way too many people that think that their BS is getting over. And that is far from the case. But anyhow, what I want to do is, Bettye, why don't you say hi to the people?
Hey, people, how you doing? I'm holding on.
I first met Bettye LaVette. We used to run a thing on Soul Patrol called the Soul Patrol Daily Mailing List. And on the Soul Patrol Daily Mailing List, it was full of conversation, basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so lots of good conversation, most of it about music, sometimes not about music, but mostly about music. And then one day, I was looking at the Soul Patrol mailing list. And of course, I was the moderator of the Soul Patrol Daily Mailing List. And there was this posting in there from someone who I didn't know. And it said, "What the heck do I have to do to get an album reviewed on this website?" Or whatever it is. So it turned out that it was Bettye LaVette. And so that's how I met her. And we've been friends ever since then. But the interesting thing about it is that Bettye hasn't just been friends with me. She's friends with lots of people on Soul Patrol. Some of you who are, sitting there watching this right now. So, I don't want to make it like Bettye LaVette is my own special friend. I mean, she's a special friend to a lot of people. And that's because when we first met her, she was really, she's really trying to see if she could get somebody to review her music. And so what we did was we reviewed her music. Those of us who lived in the New York area, we went to her concerts, and people who lived in Chicago and people who lived all over the country got involved in going to Bettye's shows and reviewing her albums. And, we all became, pretty good friends. None of which means that she's not liable to cuss you out just because you need a good cussing out as well. So, so, that's kind of how we met. And so what I wanted to do is again, I have this whole list of questions here, and I was going to do this hardcore, Bob Davis as a journalist type of interview. But something happened that made me realize that I cannot use this time to do that. I mean, we can bring Bettye back anytime and we can do a hardcore interview with her. But first of all, the hardcore interview that you would
Or
do
you
with
could
Bettye
just
LaVette.
push my book harder.
No, you're reading my mind. The book, the story is in the book. You got a copy of the book? Can you hold up a copy of the book, Bettye?
Oh, I need a book. Give me a book.
Bettye
Get
Bettye has
everything
done
in here.
Bettye has done something that most artists will not do. She has actually documented everything that I probably would ask her
Am I
in that
doing it
book.
good?
Hold up just a little bit higher.
And then
So
over
the
this
name of the
way.
book is called Bettye LaVette, A Woman Like Me.
Yeah.
So almost everything that you would want to know about Bettye LaVette's life story and her career is documented in that book.
And pictures of my 17-year-old legs. Thank
So
you.
that's one thing. The other thing is that the other day on Sunday, I was sitting here on pins and needles because I knew we were going to do this session with Bettye LaVette. And I also knew that on Sunday afternoon, they were going to announce the winners of the various categories for the Grammy Awards for this year. And Bettye was up for a Grammy Award.
Her sixth.
So we're going to talk about that. So
Okay.
I'm sitting up here thinking to myself, this could really be something totally off the chain with Soul Patrol having its very own Grammy Award winning artist in our conversation on Tuesday. She wins on Sunday. So what are we going to do? I'm sitting up here on pins and needles saying, I hope she wins, I hope she wins, I hope she wins, I hope she wins, I hope she wins. And then all of a sudden, they get to announce the category Best Contemporary Blues Album of the Year, and it's somebody else. It's not Bettye LaVette. And so I'm sitting here, I'm halfway heartbroken because I'm like, I know she deserves this. I mean, she's been trying to. Look, I'm gonna let her talk about that. But how are we going to handle this? I mean, and so I wait a few more minutes, and then I get an email from Betty's husband, Kevin, saying this is what Bettye LaVette has posted on her Facebook page. What did you post on your Facebook page, Bettye?
I don't know.
No, tell them what you posted on your Facebook page.
I was drugged. I was pissed about it, but what can I do? I am being allowed to participate, and a lot of people who want to do this aren't being allowed to participate. And so I just got me a glass of champagne, rolled me a joint, and went back to working on tunes for the next album.
Now, I appreciate that because, the joint and the champagne aside, it's like, it's not how. It's all about how do we recover from disappointment and failure in life. It's not.
Mm.
It's not about the fact that we had a disappointment in life. It's how do we recover? And so you are already on the way to recovery from your not winning a Grammy award. And I thought that that was very admirable that you could put something like that out in public, literally minutes after it was announced that you did not win. Most people can't do that. Most people will
But
go
I have
into
an
a
out.
court.
I have an out. I don't get rid of it. It stays inside me, and you can hear it in every song that I sing.
Let's put a bookmark there. I want to come back to that. But let me ask you a few. I want to ask you a few questions about the Grammy Awards itself. This is, as Kevin said, this is the sixth time that you've been nominated and you haven't won. What's wrong with those people? Or maybe there's not anything wrong with the people. Is there something about the process that makes it impossible? And I know you never say never, but I mean, six times?
Well,
What? What? What?
the things I don't know whether I posted it in my post, but my favorite singer is Ray Charles, and he never won a
Mm-hmm.
Grammy either. And I kind of feel like now, especially the way the business is turning, that I will probably receive this posthumously. In fact, it is more a fact that I'm going to receive it if I die than it is if I keep on living. I'll definitely get it if I die.
They give you the Lifetime Achievement Award after you're dead, right?
But
Is that how it
I wanted
works?
my thing of wanting it, even wanting it. The joking answer I give is, I'm from Detroit, and I'm from the '60s Detroit, so all of my schoolmates and neighbors actually have a Grammy. so, so so it's kind of like a new bicycle. That's why I wanted one. But it's more of I want to impress all the people who are impressed by Grammys. And then the other ones I'll impress by singing. But I want to honor them all. But I do know that there's a large chunk of people who really think that's a great deal. And I just want to fool them. It's like the old Lay's potato chip commercial. All I want to do is get it in your mouth. If I can get it in your house, I can get it in your mouth. Yeah, but I'm not. Well, I do. I get over things easily, and I think that's one of the things that helps me a great deal in this business. This is getting ready to be my 60th year in this business. Not my 60th year wanting to sing. My 60th year since my first record came out,
Hmm.
and I have had a tremendous amount of disappointment. And my career has gone in a more odd fashion than most of my contemporaries. But as I said, I do have a place to put it. I can put it in songs, and where most female singers are singing about guys, mostly I'm singing about my career.
So one more thing while we're on this Grammy topic, because it this whole thing with these categories kind of bothers me a little bit. And I don't know how you feel about these categories, but how did you even feel about being put into a category called contemporary blues? Did you think that that
Oh
was
well,
where you should be?
I think
Or
the categories are really really fucked. I mean, I have been a rhythm and blues singer, a pure rhythm and blues singer for 60 years. And I feel that, I mean, I've now had the opportunity to record all kinds of things, this last album and the Bob Dylan album and whatever, but it was still sung with this rhythm and blues voice. It's just if
Mhm,
Mahalia Jackson had sung all the things I recorded, they would all sound like gospel songs because that's what she was. And I'm a rhythm
mhm.
and blues singer, and I really wish that they would put the categories back to being truly what they were. I believe that we used to have a pop. category. And I think there's still room for that because I believe that people like Taylor Swift and just as Diana Ross and Mariah Carey and all of those people with a more lithe, more commercial pop kind of voice should be in that. And those of us who sound like Wilson Pickett should be in rhythm and blues, and I'm one of those. And I think that rap and hip hop can have its own thing. It should be called that, though. But for me to vibe, as hard as I've worked on phrasing and studying, especially the old standards, for me to be in competition with someone who barely speaks most of the time, I it's very and I'm and then I'm too old. It's like I feel that I'm competing with my children, and that's they have no sense of the bridge that they came across on. And that was kind of
Hmm.
what this last album that I did was about. Those girls, those women are the bridges that I came across on. And I know that. And they've all, when I was younger, they all frightened me. It's kind of hard for me to even frighten anybody these days. Somebody, I'm standing there singing them down into the ground and they're counting millions of dollars in my face. So,
Because I mean, when I went to the website on Sunday to just check out all these they got like about 1,000 different categories, and I just even finding you and finding best contemporary blues artists. I mean, it took me about 10 minutes to find it, just to find the
you
thing
know,
on their website.
You know what, Bob? I had just the greatest. It's one of the greatest thrills of my life. Last year before last, I don't know this COVID year. I can't. I have a hard time placing it. Year before last, I
Hmm.
guess it was, and I had the opportunity to go out and be on one of the committees that chose the tunes for that would be nominated.
Right.
And that was one of the most interesting processes I've ever done. I'm just so glad I was able. I'm sure they'll never ask me back, but it was one of the most interesting processes I've ever experienced. The object is it's really different than I thought it would be. It in an effort to try and get everyone involved, they have literally everyone involved, whether you know anything about music or not. Just everybody's involved. And I really think that there are people who have writers in magazines and um, um, critics and whatever who've studied music, period, forever. I think they should probably be a little more involved in it than just your average individual, which I was when I was confined to that room and having to choose these tunes. I was just an average citizen, more or less, an average music listener. But I felt that my opinion was far and above. If the thing was, there were all kinds of people in the little committee of singers, musicians, engineers, whatever. I just feel that if it was about, say, if the category was female vocalist, I just feel like I knew more about that than an engineer did. I just that was just my personal opinion, which of course you know who I offered.
Well,
So that's why I'm saying that I will I'll probably never be asked again. But I look, my husband is the epitome of integrity. He really is. And I am a little different. But I don't know. I've been in a couple of situations. The Grammys one, and then another situation which I really will not go into. But my husband had not ever been in those situations, and being one who always wants everyone to love me, he wants me to walk very carefully and say certain things and whatever. And I think that I had a great deal of that, at least 35 or 40 years of it, from my manager, Jim Lewis. But I'm 75 years old here now. I've been in this business for close to 60 years. I don't know what it is that could be taken from me if I didn't act right. I mean, like, what? What are you gonna do? Ruin my career? Yeah, what? So I pretty much say whatever it is I want to say now to whomever I wish if they've chosen to speak with me.
Well, I think that's the way it should be anyhow. We had a gentleman on Soul Patrol at one time. His name was Raul Sita, Mr. Raul Sita. He was the chief songwriter and architect of the harp tones. And so he came to me and he said, "Well, Bob, I got some CDs I want to sell. I got a website." He said, "Can you help me to do that?" And I said, "Of course I can." So I put together some material. Well, he gave me the CDs. I put together some material, did some reviews and what have you. And I listened to him real carefully. And I said, "Oh, these are the original recordings." And so I called him up. I said, "Mr. Cedar, are these CDs that you're trying to sell on your website that you got me involved with? Are you selling the original recordings or did you re record these songs?" And he said, "Well, Bob, they're the original recordings. But you know what? The record company, they ripped us off back in the 50s. So this is my way to get back at the record company. I'm going to sell their stuff that they originally ripped off from us."
They whose were
And
they?
I,
I
and
mean,
I,
they were his. They were recordings of him. Oh,
no, in other words, and I can say this because Mr. Cedar has passed away, he basically just made copies of the original
copies of
recordings.
what though? Of stuff that
The
he
original,
recorded himself.
he no, no,
I
no.
mean, was he a singer?
These were hit songs that the Harp Tones had done back in the 1950s.
Okay.
And so he just re-recorded them and put them out as CDs under his own name.
Uh
In
huh.
other words, in other words, in other, in other words, he was a bootlegger.
I think
He
that's
was.
wonderful.
Well, you know what? And the reason I bring this up now is because he said to me, he said, "Well, what are they going to do to me, Bob? I'm 86 years old. They're going to
That's
put
what
me
I'm
in
saying.
jail. They're going to put
That
me
is
in
what I'm
jail."
saying. I try. I
So,
don't deliberately try to hurt anybody or cause any trouble. But if it happened to me, it's just like with the book when people wanted to give me little issues about things I said. I said, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about what happened to me. And I can say anything I want to say about what happened to me. So,
and that's the bottom line, and that's why I brought it up because I think that that's one of the things that I like best about you is that you keep it real. So let me move on from this Grammy discussion, but only slightly because there's another
yeah,
thing
it's
that's coming up.
nauseating.
But there's another thing that's coming up, right? I understand that you've been nominated by the Blues Foundation
Hmm.
for a blues award. Also, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I haven't even, last year was one of the greatest years in my career.
Hmm.
I was uh, inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. I
Hmm.
have gotten this other nomination. I won the same thing this past year. Did the new album. The album got nominated, and I have never left the living room.
Well, you know that there's been a big organizational change at the Blues Foundation.
Yes, yes. They have a new president,
They have a new
and
president,
yeah,
and she's
but
an old
they
friend.
they have been, that they just jumped early on. That was one of the first awards I received from the Blues Foundation with When a Woman Like Me came out. And they have just they have just stuck with me. So they ride every word, every note. I just love them. I just love them. I feel like they're a home.
Well, the reason I wanted to just bring that up is because there's just a little thing I just wanted to mention here that the Blues Foundation has a brand new president and CEO, and her name is Patty Alden.
Mm-hmm.
Remember her?
Well, I haven't spoken with her, but I sent her a message.
She's our old friend from the R&B Foundation, and I've been in
Yes, I
communication.
was reading that. Uh-huh.
I've been in communication with her over the past few weeks, so we're gonna try to do some more stuff with the R&B found with the Blues Foundation, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is very important because this is
Mm-hmm.
the first time in the history of the Blues Foundation, and I want everybody in the audience to pay attention to this. That it's now headed up by a black woman. That's never been the case in the past before, and I
Has it been
I have
headed
nothing.
by a black man?
No, it's the first time a black person, period, has been in charge of the Blues Foundation. Now, as a black person, I think that is at the same time that represents a great deal of progress, but it is also shameful. How can you have
Oh,
something called the Blues Foundation and
okay.
not
Now
have
you
black people
know.
running
All right
it?
now, Robert. All right now, Robert. You
I'm
know,
sorry.
you remember my answer when you said something about culture bandits and people
Mm-hmm.
stealing it. I said if you watching and taking care of that shit, ain't nobody gonna steal it.
Nobody
So
gonna
now
steal it. So,
I went when this fifth career, as I call it, started.
mm-hmm.
I almost felt like walking the streets in some places and begging black people to come and hear these old recordings I had done. All
Thank
I
you.
had was white faces. So I
I don't
know
blame.
that, but well, I know that
Go
there are
ahead.
other people who have known about blacks in show business before, but I know it's been like the Mike Cappuses and Barbara Newmans and that the whole with Jay Stillman. Those people have begged and walked the streets to try and build a blues foundation, not to steal it, but because they knew it needed to be recognized. And it's just like I was telling somebody, a guy standing on the street in Detroit begging for some money for some wine, and he was talking about girlfriend don't go in the store is owned by the Chaldeans. I said I've lived on the North End for over 50 years. After the riots, you could have bought this place for the same thing that this Chaldean bought it for and be selling whatever it is he's selling. It was cheap, it was burnt out. He wanted to buy it and work and build it back up. Get out of him in front of his doggone store begging people for well, you could have begged up enough money by now since the riots to y'all get together and save your wine money and buy this damn store. So now you know you shouldn't bother me.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but my only point is that now black folks, this would be a good time for y'all to step up to the plate. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's one thing for me to talk about culture banditry, but if I talk about culture banditry, then y'all need to do your part, which means you got somebody like Bettye, come to her shows. I've been to her shows before. And there's been sometimes when I have been at her shows and I've been the only black person there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I
You
mean,
and I,
yeah,
we were the only black people there.
y'all got to do your part. And so, y'all can complain all you want about the Blues Foundation and that it's Lily White and this and that and the other thing. Well, guess what? Now there's a bold soul sister that's in charge of it. So now it's up to
And you got
y'all
to support
to,
her
to
and
start
support
this.
the foundation.
There
And
you
they do
go.
some great work. I mean, so many of us, in the other great argument, so many of us had the money stolen from us or whatever early on in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. The Blues Foundations have been finding these people, paying their hospital bills, paying their rent, uh, putting them in senior citizens' homes. Uh,
So it's one thing for us as black folks to complain about things, And sometimes I complain about things. It's a legitimate thing, but there comes a point in time where you got to stop complaining and you got to put some skin in the game. And so
Absolutely.
I say this to everybody in the audience: you come and support your artist, and don't let people think tell you that all we have today is hip hop, because it's not true. And I don't have anything against hip hop, but you need to support artists like Bettye and like some of the other ones that are out here. They're not dead.
I was
Support them.
so happy for Bobby Rush. I was just screaming. I was so happy for him.
Hmm.
When I
And
met
and
him,
and
maybe 30 years ago, and we had never met, and he was so humble. He said, Miss LaVette, he said, nobody never spent no money on my records. He said, I saved all my money and made all my records myself. He almost made me cry. And he has just, in these 30 years, has just done so well. He and I both came up out of a crypt at one point about 20 years ago, and people started to take hold and come to see us.
we got a couple of comments from some of the folks out in the audience. Tyrone Crawley says, compare talking about Patty Alden at the Blues Foundation. She says, compare it to the first Native American in charge of the Interior Department. Yeah,
Ah,
it's something like that. It's the same thing.
yes, yes, it is.
It's a,
Actually, it is the same thing. It is the
it's the
same
same thing.
thing.
Same thing. So big ups to her. Um, let's see, Andy. I'm not sure who Andy is. He says, as far as he's concerned, Bettye LaVette has won 3 Grammys. They got it wrong. Um, Kenny Pitt, my man, is out there. He says he loves the book. Hold that book up again,
Kenny.
Bettye. Hold the book up again.
Oh, I don't know what he did with it.
I left my copy of the book upstairs.
Oh, yes,
But
it
anyhow,
is.
where, where can people go to get the
Ta-da!
book? Can they get that from your website? Can they get it from
Yeah,
Amazon?
yeah,
Where
get it
can
from
they get the
Amazon.
book?
You can get it from my website. If you get it
Okay.
from my website, I don't have to give anybody any of it.
Okay. So you should go to Betty's website, which is what's your URL, Bettye?
I don't know. I don't know how
It,
Kevin has it set up. I think my regular website, right?
right. Hmm.
BettyLaVette.com.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean they wouldn't have to
If
go
you
any special place. Yeah.
right, just go to www.bettylavette.com and you can pick the book up there. So
Do you know that in these last 15 years, 16 years, I have not my fingers have not touched. Well, I got my iPad, which they got me just so I wouldn't bother people on the plane. I sit there and play solitaire. but, but I have not touched this keyboard on the big computer maybe once in that 15 years. Bob, I was trying to write a check a few months ago. I
a,
couldn't
a
remember
check to
how
me.
that thing goes for anything. I couldn't remember what went in all the spaces. All I've been doing is dealing with lyrics and with music, and I've claimed that this is all I've ever wanted to do, but I didn't realize how lacking I was in everything else. Now I mean I still cook and I practice housewifery and keep the house clean and whatever, but things like business of any kind and dealing with this computer, I don't do at all.
Hmm, okay.
But I cook every day.
Well,
We've what I've been home 300 and about 75 or 80 days, and I've cooked at least 370 of those days.
so are you considered to be a good cook?
Well, everybody seems to be pretty pleased, and that's why I cook, because I like to see people eat it and be pleased. But I'm not like Patty LaBelle carries her seasonings with her on the road and whatever, and cooks in the hotel room and what. And I'm not. I mean, I'm not. one of those people who love to cook. I'd rather sing than anything else. Just keep my clothes clean. My mother said I always kept my clothes clean, even if I was playing in the dirt. So everything would be dirt all in my head everywhere, but my dress would be nice and clean when I was a little baby. And I'd rather be on the stage than anything. Cooking is not, as I said, I'd like to see people eat it. And my mother was such a fantastic cook. It just rubbed off on me, but it wasn't an aspiration.
Hillary Clinton carries around her own spices also.
I
Carries around her own
carry
hot sauce.
spices enough, but not
Yeah.
enough to make a meal. But
Hmm.
I have a spice bag, but not enough to make a whole meal.
Okay.
Though I
Well,
have
so you
made
can
pepper
just.
steak on the window ledge of in a hotel room. Actual pepper steak. I mean, from raw steak, cut it up on a little on the telephone book, and made the whole. Honestly, the road is the road.
But when you go on the road nowadays, you don't have to. You don't travel under those kind of conditions anymore that you used to back in the '60s and whatnot, right?
Oh, right, right, right. Everything is so different, and I'm enjoying it so much when I'm out there. They treat me as if I've just landed or something. I'm really really treated like old women should be treated. But I really it's completely different than when I started in the '60s, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then too,
Mm-hmm.
that I mean, these children have changed this so drastically until just the fact that you do it puts you in a different sphere than the average person is, where you used to have to be a star. I've got champagne and all kinds of stuff in my rider. In the '60s, I did not even have one. Only a star had a rider.
I remember one time I called you up, and I can't remember whether you were on the road or you were just in New York, and you were telling me about that. You had champagne, and you had this, and you had that, and you said, "Well, Bob," and I said, "That sounds like you're living pretty good." And you said, "I'll never forget this." You said, "Bob, you got to understand something about Betty LaVette. Betty LaVette is high maintenance."
Oh, you know what? The reason that David Ritz decided to write the book is because my career has been, uh, uh, I think, most unusual than most of my contemporaries. I have
Hmm.
I've suffered an awful lot as far as my career goes, but men have always liked me and they have always taken care of me, and I've never been hungry, and I've never not been sharp, and I've never not had drugs and champagne.
Well, that's there's something to be
All I
said for
didn't
that.
have
I
was
mean,
a hit record.
so speaking of hit records, let me piggyback on something that you said. You said something in your statement the other day about working on the next record. What's the next record going to be about?
Well, I'm not gonna sit here and tell. I don't even know if it's gonna be a next record. It's next in my head. Ain't nobody else said it was gonna be next, but it's
Well,
next in my head. I
what
certainly
do you
wouldn't
have
talk
it?
about it. I would have to at least know that it's coming out before I would talk about it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I thought maybe you had something in the can, kind of like ready to go.
No,
But
this can.
right, that's what I'm. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that
we
can.
don't have.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you when we talk. When we talk.
Okay, okay, okay. So when this pandemic ends, I know you're anxious probably to get back out there. What are some of your favorite cities to perform in, or favorite venues?
The hardest part of the whole thing now, especially at my age, the hardest part of it is travel. So I could work
Hmm.
here in New York for the rest of my life because I don't want to get to where it is. But as I said, now that I'm being treated extremely decently, almost everywhere is the same way to me. I go in the back door, I come out of the back door, I walk into a lovely room, we get up before day and go to the airport. And
Are you
when I'm in New York, it's a little different because I can come home and when I'm in New York and when I'm working at the Carlisle and the City Winery, and those are my favorite gigs because I dreamed all of my life of working at the Carlisle and having been able to do that, and because the City Winery has more or less adopted me, that's kind of a second home. And so I've always, when I first thought about even doing this, or even thought that I could do it, I didn't even think beyond New York. I didn't think in terms of going everywhere. I just thought in terms of coming to New York.
are you still with the Rosebud Agency?
No, my closing agency. Um, I've
Oh,
been
okay.
I've been doing this podcast. I will have Kevin tell you everything you need to know about it. I'm telling you, Mike, they have to write everything down for me, lyrics and whatever, because I don't have. I'm thinking about happy things. But I've been doing this podcast every Friday evening at 7:30, and last week I interviewed. My producer, Steve Jordan, and then I interviewed my other producer, Dennis Walker, and I'm going to interview Mike Kappas, I believe, this Friday. And well, it's mostly my producers and people who've worked closely with me in this last fifth career. So Mike Kappas will be
Mm-hmm.
next.
Okay. Okay. So how can people listen to your
And it's called
podcast?
Quarantine Time with Bettye LaVette. And you know
Quarantine
all the little
time.
apparatus. Now, see if I could just say it's on www whatever that'd be it. But you gotta go here and hold up your right hand and push these buttons, and so, so Kevin will send it to you.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's been fun. It really has. I thought it was going to be something I didn't like, but it's been fun.
Well, all you basically have to do is talk, right?
Yeah, and you know I
Yeah,
can
you
do
can
that.
do that. You can do that. You can do that. Now,
Uh,
the reason I asked about Rosebud is because you know as your career started to take off back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, they were getting you booked all over the country,
oh my
and
goodness, that was it. I mean, that was, you know, when this fifth career started, I had A Woman Like Me, which was
hmm
owned by a record company about the size of this room. I had Bettye LaVette Live, which we had done in Amsterdam, and that was with a company that was even smaller than that. And
hmm
I think there was one other thing, but it was three things. And it took all three of those things to even start this fifth career. But Mike Kappas booked me in everywhere, Prague and everywhere. So I was able to be my own ambassador and my own DJ, if you will, and go and introduce this album all over the world by working. So he is actually the sponsor of this fifth career.
Well, one of the things that I observed was I would see the advertisements for these shows all over the country, literally all over the world, Bettye LaVette, and I noticed that all of these ads, it didn't matter what city it was in, they all had one thing in common. They had a quote from Bob Davis that was used in the advertising, no matter where it was. They always used the same quote from me,
Really,
and
what they say?
it was taken from one of the reviews that I did from you. I think it was at Joe's Pub, um, and I said, when you go to see Bettye LaVette perform live, she leaves blood on the floor,
Oh my
and
goodness.
they used that quote, and it got to be and you know, it was nothing that I did. I mean, I just wrote a review. They chose to use the quote, and they used it in all of their advertising, and it got, you know, it said Bob Davis Soul Patrol. And so
Hmm.
it got to the point where my name became so associated with your name that there were a lot of people on the internet who thought that, oh yeah, Bob Davis discovered Bettye LaVette. I'm like, no, 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 no,
Ah,
you don't understand. They just happened to use my quote, and so, but that you have no idea how much credibility that gave me is the fact that that quote was used all over the place. And so it was funny because the other day I went over to your website to look at your content, and I saw all of these quotes from all of these different people. There was a quote there from Keith Richards. There was a quote there from Elton John. There was a quote there from
mhm.
Bonnie Raitt. There was quotes in the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal all about Bettye LaVette. This made me smile because I said, I remember there was a point in time when the only quote about Bettye LaVette was from me.
Well, I
It's,
remember. Well, Bob, don't get overjoyed now. I met someone else did know about me when you met me.
I know.
Somebody else
Oh,
did.
oh, I know
We
that.
have
I'm
we
just.
have to we have to give England a great deal of due here because they so let me down easy until I got there. It took 30
Mhm.
years to get there, but they sold it every day for 30 years till I came. So y'all are my two little gashes.
Well,
But
I
I
just.
don't believe it. People, because I am arrogant, people think that I don't read reviews. Kevin will read some of them to me. When we get in town, as I say, I go in the back door, I come out of the back door. I never listen to, I rarely listen to playbacks when we're recording. I really
Mhm.
don't listen to them a lot. I know what I sung, I know what I wanted to hear, and but I'm really not that fascinated with the sound of my name and the sound of my voice. So I don't see a great deal of it. So not only haven't I seen the one that Keith Richards said, I haven't seen the one that you did either.
It's well, it's on your website. But speaking of that,
But I had
you
the
you
website
you.
for 2 years before I saw it, and I still haven't read the book. It's
Speaking of
kind of, in
which,
a way, it's kind of embarrassing to me. I don't, not embarrassing. I'm extremely flattered, but I don't feel comfortable reading it and looking at
that's all right.
myself.
You don't have to. You don't have to. But I just wanted to bring that up because I wanted to have a nice way to go into my next topic. Like I
So
said,
you're supposed to
we'll
say
have you
like the
back again.
children. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So
I'm just
yeah,
saying.
uh, we have in our audience tonight. We have Miss Cheryl Russell, and I wanted to bring her name up because she was really instrumental in terms of us doing what we did with you when we first met you. I mean, Cheryl
Hmm.
went above and beyond. I mean, she had Bettye LaVette over to her house. We had a CD
Ah,
review listening party at her house, and that was the only way we could have done it because Cheryl lived in New York, and she pulled the people together. She pulled the food together, and then the music was there, and we had a grand old time. And we did that more than once. And
is
and
she here
and she is
with
in
us?
the audience.
Oh,
She
wait a
is
minute.
in the audience tonight.
Will I be able to see her?
You can't see her, but she can see you. She
I
can see
haven't
you.
seen her in
But
so long.
I wanted to bring her name up here because you know she's really a special kind of person, and I think
Yes, she
that one
is.
of the things that you've been able to do in you know your fourth career or your fifth career or whatever number it is, you've been able to attract special people like Cheryl who have been in your corner and have really
Absolutely.
go, gone to the nth degree to make sure that you know that your music got heard. And I did not want to us to end this broadcast without mentioning her name. And like I
Oh, I
said,
wish
this
I
was
could see her.
Oh well, I'm sure we can arrange that. Also,
No, no,
but
I'm not putting on any more makeup and doing this again. My grandchildren keep chiding me because I won't do the facey thing with them. I said, I don't want anybody to be that close into my face with nothing on it.
well, guess what you can do so that you could avoid having to do that if you want to. I'll give you a little secret. You could put on a mask,
You know
and then
what,
you wouldn't
Bob?
have to put it.
You know what, don't you? I know you know what. I do know you know what. Mike knows you know what too.
You can put on a mask. Anyhow,
Ah!
Cheryl says, "Good evening, Betty. Your quote little one is watching. You look good. Can't wait to see you perform live again."
Oh, I
So,
can't wait to see her too. I haven't seen her in so long. I haven't seen any of y'all in so long. And I
well,
think
I
I was
think I
telling
have
you
a.
when we had that long conversation on the phone that the last time I was in Chicago, the little group that usually comes to see me, I call them the Chicago faction. And they this last time I was there, they weren't there.
Well, I mean, how many how many times can you go see Betty LaVette?
Every time I come.
Uh, well, like I said, I wanted to mention Cheryl. I know she was out there
I
tonight,
love you,
and
Cheryl.
and 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 even though I told myself I wasn't going to do it, I decided to make this a little bit like old home week because I really felt so bad on Sunday when you did not win. And no, I felt so bad. I'm like, this lady. I mean, she's come. I mean, she's had a long career, which you can read about in the book. Hold the book up again. Hold the book up again, please. Hold the
Bob, I
book up.
don't work here,
Okay. See,
and I can't
you
even
can read
read
about her
straight.
long career in that book. But during the
Yeah.
time that I've known her for 20 years, and she has truly busted her ass in order to put out some great music, and not only put out the great music, but to make sure that everybody, that all of you have had the opportunity to get to know her up close and personal at venues like Joe's Pub, where you can sit in the audience and you can literally reach out and touch Betty LaVette, all the way up to President Obama. She has sung for President Obama. She has come so far just in the time that I've known her. And for her
Bob,
to
it
get,
took 60 years.
I understand that. You're an overnight sensation.
You you gotta get over my life starting when I met you.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's when it started.
It took
But
40 years to meet you.
but people will tell me, oh well, Betty LaVette this and Betty LaVette that. And I'm like, Betty LaVette basically created herself. We start in around the year 2000, and she got to sing for the president. She sang for the president, and not just any president. She got to sing for Obama,
Right. No, the president.
the president.
The president.
So it doesn't get much bigger than that.
No,
I mean,
that is
so
absolutely the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. That and the Kennedy Center honors are the absolute two, and learning to tap dance. Those are the three greatest things that ever happened to me. And as
you know
far as
my
uniqueness goes.
my did I ever tell you my parents went to go see you in Bubbling Brown Sugar?
Who?
My parents,
Oh, shut up. Really?
yes, they used to
Oh,
go.
that's
They used
wonderful.
they used to go to, and you will remember this. There was a period of time in the late 60s and early 70s where they had all these black Broadway plays all of a sudden coming from out of nowhere. And like they went to go see Pearlie and they went to go see plays like that. And so Bubbling Brown Sugar was one of those plays that they went to go see.
I love it. I love it. That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. You know, when I
So
went to when I joined Bubbling Brown Sugar, that was the first time I'd ever seen a play in my life. Well, Detroit is not a theater town.
well, New York's a theater town, but the
Yeah.
people in my neighborhood didn't necessarily go to the theater until they started having those black plays. And when they
Mhm.
did start having them, it became a big deal. And
Mhm.
so that was one of the things that my parents did. They used to
Mhm.
go to those plays. And so
Mhm.
I just thought I'd throw that in there, because
Well, I'm glad you
again,
did. That's good to know.
so
It makes
so it
me feel
wasn't
so
just
good.
when you met me, because you hadn't met me when Bubbling Brown Sugar was out. But um, I just want to say, because we're just about out of time, and like I said, this thing will be rebroadcast. We're going to have it up on the Soul Patrol website. So if you know
Mhm.
anybody that was trying to come to this uh, event tonight, if you missed it, they'll be able to watch this. And then we're going to have Bettye back again, and we'll have a more
Oh, for
serious
sure.
conversation. Because I don't want to slight her at all, but I really did want to just make it a little bit like Old Home Week, because it hurt me that she did not win this Grammy Award. And I know that it hurt her because she said so. She said she was pissed. And when she says she's pissed, that means, and she can put that in print, that means it's 100 times worse. And so I
Ah,
wanted to put that out there, because there's people, I'm sure, that's watching this that's like, oh, well, it's not any big deal. She's a professional. She'll win next year, or she'll win the year after. Well, guess what? She might never win.
true that.
And she might never win. And that would be, guess what? That would be a big loss for the world. But even if she never wins, you could still buy her music, and you could go to her shows, and you could read her book, and you can get a lot of enjoyment out of Bettye LaVette. And so I wanted
You know,
everybody to know that.
Bob,
But
as I quote my beloved manager Jim Lewis in the book, and he's who the book is dedicated to. But he told me early on, he said you're cute, you got a little waistline, a big booty, but you're gonna have to learn how to sing some songs. And he said if you do, you may never be a star, but if you will learn these songs and learn them well, you will be able to sing for the rest of your life. And that is the way I look at it.
mhm. Well, on that note, I'm going to end this broadcast. Like I said, we'll bring her back. We'll have a more serious conversation. But I wanted you all to get to know the Bettye LaVette that I know, and to see her, and to know that, even if you might have seen her quote from the other night, she is just fine, and she will be just fine. And thank you very much, Bettye. I appreciate
Oh,
you
Bob,
coming on
thank
here.
you so much. I'm so proud of you and Michael. It's just wonderful. You know, anything I can do, call me. It'll get on my nerves, but you know I'll come anyway. I love you,
Thank you,
baby.
Bettye.
Give my love to the whole family.
I will certainly do that.